Welcome to episode number 4 of the Best Fleets podcast. I am your host, Chris Henry. For today's episode, we are joined by Peter Koza and Mike Zelek from Wellington Motor Freight and the Wellington Group of Companies. Wellington is a consecutive Best Fleets winner in only their 3rd year of participation. In this episode, we will extract some of the strategies and tactics that help make Wellington a best fleet to drive for. Oh, wait, what do we have here?
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Jane, good to see you again.
Hi. So, I know you didn't invite me, but, I'm here because you can't stop me.
Yeah, anytime. You're welcome anytime.
So here I am.
Yeah.
You need to get some more hats behind your head.
Well, we are. We're going to be actually adding in Wellington Motor Freight,
Are they
which
sending
is our
you a
next.
hat?
Yeah, they are sending us a hat, and we're going to be interviewing them on this podcast. That's our next guest.
Excellent.
So
Wellington.
there'll be an invisible location on my right-hand side, right near the Central Oregon 7 consecutive hat.
You may have to move the basketball net.
Actually, you can move it vertical this way and that way, but you mean up and down, or?
No, get rid of it.
Okay, yeah.
So I know I told you to put it there, and now I'm telling you to get rid of it. If you have a line of hats, I think that might be better.
Well, it'd be easier for me to shoot baskets in because it's very difficult to throw behind my head. So.
Have you even tried? It does not look used at all.
Yeah, I have tried. Our kids have tried it too. They haven't brought the wall down yet. No, it's not very fun for them. So. And it's not fun for them when they try to do it while I'm sitting here because the ball is only about
fun for them.
2 feet away from me. So.
Have you been dinged in the head?
Yes, I have a couple times. So. They think it's funny.
Go for it, kid. Chris's kids.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
So our guests today are Peter and Michael from Wellington Motor Freight. So they're a company based in Ontario. They've been in the program, the Best Fleets program, for 3 years, and have been named in 2 consecutive years winners. Right. So you have a little bit more background with them than I do, being a newcomer to Best Fleets. Give us your take on Wellington Motor Freight.
Well, I remember, so Mark and I divide up the Best Fleets list, for who you're going to interview. And now that you're part of that divvy up list and Tiffany's part of, we have different staff members on it. But at the time it was just Mark and I really didn't have much of a clue who Wellington was. And I interviewed them the second year that they were, the first year they made the top 20. And I remember this sounds terrible to say, but I didn't really expect very much. I just kind of thought, it's an Ontario fleet. And because they're close and familiar, I was like, yeah, we'll see. And when I did the interview, I was really impressed. I was really impressed with, it was Michael Zelek who I spoke to, and generally he does a majority of work on the Best Fleet submission. And as I did the interview, and hearing him talk, I was just getting more and more impressed by the programs that he wanted to put in place, the things he had already done. And I was like, you know what, this guy, I think they're going to be a fleet to watch. And we always do that. So you know that, after you have an interview, you're always like, oh man, they were great. Or, oh man, that wasn't good. And, are they going to be on the top 20? Or they, but what I thought, because we can pick the fleets to watch, I was thinking I'd like to pick Wellington as a fleet to watch. Right. And what do you know? They got on the top 20, which is kind of beyond my control. I don't control who gets on the top 20. That's just scores. I can control who's a fleet to watch though. So this actually happened to me this year as well with Jetco, because I was like, yeah, I want them to be a fleet to watch. And then they ended up in the top 20. So they were very surprising. Not that it was very surprising, they just surprised me, and this happens every once in a while. But what Mike did with the program is he basically watched and read the book and figured out what the kinds of programs that were going to be successful. Mm-hmm. And he implemented them. So he basically had a best fleets playbook that we are very open about, basically say, do this, do this, do this, it's going to help you. He did it and ended up in the top 20. And he's continuing to do it, and he's continuing to build on the stuff that he's already done, which is really cool. And it's really nice to see it when people take best fleets really seriously and really try to make the changes that they think that they see other people doing, and they do it themselves, and they do it with their own take. It's not the first fleet who's done that, actually, who's been in the top 20.
Well, yeah, the common theme that I keep hearing from a testimonial point of view is this is a quote unquote feedback loop, or our roadmap for how to improve. So it's almost like extracting the things that may or may not be happening from a progressive point of view within the trucking bubble or outside the trucking bubble, and adding it to your operational strategies. And that's the one question I'm going to be asking Michael and Peter, who's going to be joining them, is how they're using best fleets as a model to build their company. And I guess one advantage they have is they're a relatively young company, new company. Mm-hmm. I think they've bypassed that startup phase because they've grown quite a bit from that point. But I think in the first year they had something like 16 trucks, and they're now up to 65 or 64 trucks.
I know,
plus they've gotten into
grown.
final mile. They purchased a courier company. They purchased an operation in Wisconsin. So I'm looking forward, especially to that bio part. How did they get to where they are in such a short period of time? So it's kind of cool to see these juggernauts in trucking happen over a fairly short period of time. So.
Well, we like to see them. Like we I love it when we have them. So I'm always looking at the really small fleets to see what they're doing. And mm-hmm. they often can really surprise you, especially when they aren't bogged down by the trucking mindset, which is, mm-hmm. It's a 60-year-old company. We've done it this way ever since the dawn of time. So we're going to keep doing it now. And it just is, ongoing and ongoing. When you have a new company, or you've just started a brand new company, Bob's your uncle. You can do whatever you want. There's no history that you have to deal with. And I think that is a real benefit.
Yeah. And that's a pet peeve of mine, is everyone looking at trucking problems and then trying to solve it with a existing trucking solution. Not looking outside that bubble. And I know you have a particular pet peeve, and that pet peeve is the term quote unquote open door policy. And I know it was relevant at one time, but these days it's become a kind of a has-been from a operational strategy or HR strategy point of view. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, well, Mark and I have talked about open door policy for, I don't know, ever since the thing started. We've talked, ever since the first year, and we realized that everybody says open door policy. We've kind of said, what? What has come up, it's funny because it's kind of dying out, which I like. I'm very happy that open door policy is dying out, because it was really just a catchphrase. It was a panacea, and it wasn't saying anything. It was just something that you said, that you basically took the responsibility of solving a problem off your plate and onto somebody else's. So what I mean by that is that, if you have an open door policy, you don't have to anticipate any problems at all. You just wait for people to complain, which is so awesome. Like when you're the people who are the people who are having this happen to them, and you say, oh, but I have an open door policy, come and tell me about it anytime. It's so hard for people to complain. Mm-hmm. They don't want to complain. Nobody wants to complain, because right. You might lose your job, you might get punished, you might, people may stop liking you. There's all kinds of reasons. So we wanted to have a better method of, or we wanted to try and tell people what to do instead. We don't want to say stop using the words open door policy. So we try to start educating people on what you can do. So how do you reach out to people and get their opinions? So you can do surveys. You can, go take people out for lunch. You can have committees or where executive are part of the committee. You can have the committees are a really good one. Driver committees where you have different types of people. So maybe people from different lines, different from ethnic diversity, or women, or, someone who has a disability, and just get their input, because then you don't necessarily have to do all that much work. You just have to give them an opportunity to say something that you can listen to.
And the important part is it's not just one way. It's not just accepting or getting the feedback. I wouldn't even say accepting, but getting the feedback. We're actually closing the loop on it.
Yes.
So the resolution part is very important. So you want it to be open door, you want open lines of communication, but there has to be more than just that. And one of the things that I thought was pretty cool in a recent article about Prime and their participation, actually it was Prime and Halver Lines, in their participation in the Best Fleets Drive Forward program, they mentioned that one of the things that they got out of the program was the motivation to start a driver advisory board. And that has been a phenomenal success. I actually know the person who facilitates those now, and he says it's one of the best things they ever did within the Prime organization, is start those very, very large initiatives within the driver advisory boards.
And they are formal. They are like, if you see any pictures of their driver advisory meetings, like there's a lot of people there. There's microphones. Everybody has their, and actually Maverick, who's not on the top 20 this year, but have been in the past for a couple of years, they had a great driver advisory board, which was made up of all of the drivers of the month, and they were called the Black Hats. And I just loved that, because it gave people stature. And it's amazing how, a single color of hat, like your hats, can give people stature. It's so bizarre. It's like a physical thing that people can look at and say, okay, you have achieved this. And I've read actually about where people are having difficulty with their drivers and shippers, or the driver image or the trucking image, is to give people these kinds of outward awards that they can wear. And actually it was a thing about nuclear verdicts. And if your driver is testifying at one of these trials, and they are proudly wearing their stuff that they've gotten as a reward, maybe it's a hat, maybe it's a jacket, maybe it's a belt or a watch or a ring or whatever it is, then it actually shows the jury that there is, that the driver actually has some pride in the company that they're working for. So it's a really easy way to kind of build that team spirit. But I guess
setting, improving the value, or recognizing the value of higher standard of working, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and Prime has like so many different levels. Like there's so many things that you can get at Prime. They have a great rewards. The other thing that I would say about open door policy is that I think as a company, if you find yourself going back to open door policy, which it is not happening anywhere near as much anymore. What we find is that the press kind of use it to describe why a company is successful in human resources, because they don't have the words. So I think one of the next things we have to do is actually educate the press on, no, that's not why they're successful.
And also, kind of removing the former buzzwords of HR, from their lexicon, I guess.
I don't know who introduced the buzzword of open door policy. I don't know who it was, but congrats. You created like a generation of people.
It's probably a paragraph in Peter Drucker's books or something that put it in there, and it's been
But what I was going to say is that anytime you feel the need to say, but we have an open door policy, remember that means you don't have a policy. You don't have any strategy for how to deal with whatever problem the open door policy would solve. Mm-hmm. So it could be anything. It could be, people not liking their trucks. It can be people not feeling secure at a particular customer site or truck stop or whatever. It can be anything. If you're hearing about it and you want to go back to your open door policy as your solution, that's probably not the right way to go about doing that.
That's good. Food for thought for our viewers. And I'll definitely say hi to Michael and Peter for you. Yes. And hopefully you'll come on a future episode.
I probably will, because, this is killing like half an hour of my day and it's enjoyable. So
good. Well, if for our viewers, if you haven't checked it out, check out the Carrier's Edge podcast. Jane will have more takes on that podcast, along with Mark, or the co-founder of Carrier's Edge as well.
The poor sod who has to, listen to me rail on about things. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't feel sorry for him. Okay.
Right.
Check you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Jane. Take care. All right. Well, Peter, Mike, welcome to the Best Fleets podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris. Happy to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So I thought we'd jump right in. You guys have kind of, in my opinion, been a little bit of a juggernaut in the Canadian trucking industry. It appears you kind of came out of nowhere, but I know there's more to the story there. So tell our audience more about Wellington Motor Freight, the Wellington Group, and all the cool things that have happened over the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, so Wellington Motor Freight was founded in 2014 by myself. And we started off as a 3PL broker within the industry and slowly started making a small name for ourselves through some of our customer base and through retaining good relationships with carriers. And then around 2018, we started to add assets to our division and start working on more of a asset-based / brokerage company. In 2019, we purchased a final mile, so to speak, white glove kind of company that assisted with all the local deliveries, stuff of that nature. So we could offer a customer base a little more one-stop shop for bringing in full truckload and then, potentially doing the final mile to local area deliveries.
That's with straight trucks and sprinter vans. So kind of diversify what we're already doing.
Exactly. And then in 2020, we actually purchased a company in Roberts, Wisconsin, Trucking Pros, and that started to put us within the U.S. market as a small force. We've been long-term friends with the owner there at the time, Jason, and it's been such a strategic partnership between the two of us to join forces, and now we can offer more of a U.S. to U.S. domestic option to a lot of our customers. And again, it's just diversifying our portfolio at the end of the day. It's really given us that option to go to one customer and offer them a bunch of different solutions at once. And the more that you can keep in-house, the more cost savings you're going to be able to give to that customer. And you're also going to be able to control a lot of the freight.
Well, the timing of that's kind of funny too, because that acquisition, I think it went through in February of 2020, which was about a month before we first heard the word coronavirus and COVID. So I don't think anyone from our Canadian offices have been able to visit the new office in Wisconsin yet, just based on different restrictions and quarantines and COVID protocols. So at a glance, you'd think it's a horrible time to actually finalize something, but it's been pretty much nothing but sunshine and rainbows so far. It's been a great venture that we've done with them, and I think both parties are happy with how things are going.
Yeah, it's actually funny. I was in a meeting with more than two trucking companies, but two of them were Wisconsin based. And we were in the meeting the day that the deal was announced. We were in Wisconsin, and both of them, because they knew I was Canadian, said, "What's this Wellington Motor Freight? Who are these guys?" So you definitely got their attention, some of the larger fleets up there. So congrats on that. So you got all the components. You got the logistics side, you got the warehousing, you got the final mile. How many drivers, how many trucks do you have on the asset side right now?
So based in Canada, let's say by the end of the month, or I guess the end of May, because we've got some more trucks coming in, we're going to be closer to 60 trucks on the ground, and at least double that in trailers, if not triple that. And then for each truck, we've got, well, for many of our trucks, our local trucks usually have a day shift and a night shift. And then we've got our Sprinter vans and our straight trucks as well. So in total, we've got probably getting closer to 100 drivers working for us now.
Very cool. Very cool. And how about individually? How did you both enter the transportation game?
Peter, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, I've been in it for a while. I started doing some deliveries when I was probably in my early 20s. Yeah, I was delivering for Staples actually. So I got a kind of a taste for the industry, and never really on the operations side at that point, just more on the driving side and just the hustle and bustle and keeping, active and, doing, I think I was doing like 40, 50 deliveries a day. So wasn't any of the long haul stuff, but it was a great experience nevertheless. And, few years later, I ended up getting into more of an operation role. And from that point on, it just seemed to be something that really clicked with me. I found to have some different views on certain things that others didn't, that was beneficial in my end of things. And just good practices, keep good relationships, being humble, not really forgetting where you came from. It's a big part. A lot of the relationships that I've made throughout my career in the industry, I use now later down the road, owning a business. A lot of those people who were, low level and, drivers or employees at the time, 10, 15 years ago are now in more executive roles. So those relationships have really paid off to use them down the road in today's world.
Nice.
Cool.
Very nice.
And,
Mike, how about you?
Yeah, so I started at a non-asset based third-party logistics company about 10 years ago. After about a year and a half there, I moved on to Wellington Group of Companies, which had at the time around probably 500 trucks. I was there for about 5 years. And what was really cool in my learning curve is I spent time in the brokerage division. I spent a lot of time in dispatch as a driver manager. And then I got into driver recruitment and driver retention. So having that background gave me more of an insight on what a driver experiences just from talking to them all the time. And also just being in the dispatch room, I could kind of see the mentality that a lot of office people have and kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So I think that's helped me a lot throughout my career, and that eventually led to my next job, where I went to Charter Logistics for just under a year before reconnecting with the team at Wellington. Derek, our company president, was my general manager over at Caravan. So when he came over to Wellington, reached out to me, and yeah, just knowing the people that I was going to work with made it a pretty easy decision to switch companies, and we've kind of taken off running with it.
Well, congrats to you both on your success and your trajectory. It's been cool to watch from the outside looking in. So you guys got involved with Best Fleets back in 3 years ago now. So you've been involved for 3 full years. What kind of got you interested, or was it from a driver's perspective? Did they find it and nominate you without any awareness of the program?
No, I've been aware of the program for a while. I've seen it on lots of other companies' trailers, and I know it's something that I applied for at previous companies without, obviously without being named as one of the best fleets. So it's been something that's been on the radar. And when I was talking to the team here about a position at Wellington, best fleets was actually something that was written into the contract. It's like, this is a designation that we want. We believe that we're going to be one of the best fleets in North America. We want that official recognition. So almost from the get-go, that was something that we strive to do. And, a lot of the programs that we've implemented, some of them have been in direct response to previous years' best fleets programs. Other programs are just from, what we've learned along the way. But, I really can't say enough about how much best fleets has influenced a lot of the way we do things. And that's, the biggest contributor to our near perfect driver retention.
No, that's great. And prior to reaching out to you guys, I went through your questionnaires over the last 3 years that you submit. So for our viewers, in addition to being nominated, each company like Wellington has to submit a pretty lengthy questionnaire. So it can take some time to complete your first one and subsequent ones. And those are part of the evaluation process. And you can actually pick out from year to year, here's the first year, and then what you learned through the process in the subsequent year and what you implemented. So it's always rewarding from our point of view to see, okay, they changed something because of the feedback they got from best fleets. So is there anything specific that you can point to in recent years that you've implemented because of the best fleets process?
Yeah, one that comes immediately to mind is when we started, we didn't really have much of a range for our drivers. It was, whether you had 3 years of experience or 25 years of experience, you'd be earning the same amount. And we kind of realized that pretty much in any profession, whether you're an accountant or customer service, whatever it is, the more experience you have, the more you should be getting paid, assuming that you're really good at what you do. So then we started introducing a tiered system where people with less experience would not be earning as much as the drivers with, 5, 10, 15 years of experience. That was the first takeaway. Another one that I wrote down, just improvements that we could make. Like we've had a driver's lounge at pretty much all times, but it wasn't too difficult to make some improvements to it that make it a 4 out of 10 to a 9 or a 10 out of 10. Like to put in a TV that's going to last it for 3 years doesn't really cost you a lot of money, and providing basic coffee or oatmeal or granola bars, or we've actually got a deal with Red Bull where they supply our drivers with free Red Bull. It's not a ton of effort, but it's little things like that can make a difference. And kind of seeing that in the best fleets questions, just different areas to improve on. Our driver's lounge was definitely one of them.
Nice. And describe to me the week, what a week looks like for a Wellington driver. So how many stops, how long are they gone for? Anything unique in terms of how they operate compared to a regular or another average truck driver?
Yeah. So it would vary a little bit between, what role that driver has, but all of our drivers are paid a salary. They've got a fairly dedicated schedule. So our drivers that cross the border, they know exactly where they're going, which customers they're going to. 99% of the time it's the exact same trip. Our local drivers, they know there's only 6 or 7 different places that they're going to go to in a day. They roughly know what the hour's going to be like. I mean, of course, it's transportation, so everything always changes. Mm-hmm. But what's nice is they can kind of do it at their own pace because they're not getting paid by the mile. They're not getting paid by the hour. They know exactly what they're going to make on the year. If they want, they can break it down to what they're going to make per day. But they get to go at their own pace as long as our customers are happy. They're not rushing around. They're not pushing the limits on their clock. I would say they average 50 hours a week, which, bodes for a pretty good work-home life balance. And yeah, I don't know if I've mentioned to you before, Chris, but we once went 16 months without a driver resignation, and that's unheard of in the industry. Like
I saw that in the Truck News article, so that is pretty unheard of. And how does that? So now you have basically 2 experiments. You got the Ontario-based fleet, and you have the Wisconsin-based fleet. How do those compare? Are there any differences? Have you implemented the same model? Can you implement the same model that you did in Ontario with the Trucking Pros fleet?
Yeah, the idea is 100% to have a reflecting success on both levels of our driver retention and just our practices in general. When we see a success like we do here with what we've implemented, it's something that we just transfer over into any new venture that we take part in. So that's essentially what we bring to these new partnerships that we come into, is our experience and what we've developed as a company. We take all those best practices and then transfer them into our new company and somewhat reflect the operation that we have here within the driver's side of thing, or even outside of the drivers, just ensuring that we're bringing the best that we can possibly bring to that company.
Yeah, you don't have to reinvent the wheel if it's something that's got us great success with our Canadian-based fleet. It's something that we're going to try out on our US fleet, and we're not completely there yet. I believe our drivers there aren't on a salary yet, but it's something that we have in the pipeline. It's a very rare model to pay your drivers a salary.
For sure.
But I feel that's the way the industry almost has to go. You can't rely on mileage. You can't even rely on hourly pay, because if for some reason a customer is down and the driver can't go to work that day, that driver is losing money, and it's nothing to do with him or her. It's just based on the customer. The way we have it set up, your salary is guaranteed, whether or not the wheels turn, whether or not you're broken down on the side of the road, or if there's a summer shutdown for a customer, your paycheck's not going to change 1 cent.
Yeah, and I guess the argument that I've heard consistently from companies resistant to going to a time-based or a salary-based model is it's very hard to disconnect the pricing model, which is per hour, to a different form of compensation. But my rebuttal to that is pretty much every other industry does that. You're not buying a good at Walmart on a per mile basis. They're pricing that into the end product and the distribution. So I think you're on the right track and you're on the leading edge. I think the one thing that I'm going to reinforce that I've seen consistently is in the driver surveys that we get back is it's not necessarily how much they get paid. Obviously, they want to, if they're experienced and they're a good driver, safe driver, they want to be paid, upper tiers, first quartile compensation for their geographic area. The biggest thing, though, that we see reflected in the surveys is they want steady income, and that's what you get with the salary. You don't get that roller coaster of cutoffs for payroll for certain loads, those kind of things. And we have now 3 companies in the Best Fleets program that offer a true salary-based compensation, and they may have other issues, but in the questions about benefits and compensation, that's one thing that comes through is my earnings are consistent. I don't have to worry from week to week to week what my paycheck is going to look like. So definitely you guys are on the right track in that regard.
Yeah, that's how we feel, where you don't have good weeks and bad weeks. They're all the same. If you're ever applying for a mortgage or a loan or credit for any reason, it's a lot easier to say, hey, here's my guaranteed salary. Here's what my paycheck has looked like for the last 26 weeks versus some people that have a $700 a week and a $1,900 a week. It's that consistency and so much less stress when you know what's coming in. And if you are stuck in traffic or your equipment does break down or a customer does have some major issue, the onus isn't on you to pay for that financially. It's, the onus becomes on the company to find a way to make the truck profitable.
Awesome.
Yeah,
now the
another nice thing that we've done is we've kind of taken that salary model and we've implemented it into different divisions now as well. So we actually have a flatbed division now that we've brought that pay structure into, and it's been working great there as well. So it's nice to see that it had its success in our initial dry van division and reefer, and now we've kind of implemented that into a different area of the company.
Yeah, right through the sprinter vans and straight trucks. Like every single one of our company drivers are on salary.
Yeah.
Aside from part-time, those guys are still hourly, of course, but it's like, I can't believe more companies don't do it, especially when they see our success. It would make sense to try and replicate it, but I haven't seen a great change in the industry yet.
No, not yet on either side of the border. And I know the default answer to this question is, we could always use more drivers, but do you find that relative to your peers that you're ultimately talking to lots of people, you're having a easier time getting applications and interviews with drivers?
Yeah, we generally have a waiting list of people that want to drive for us. Our last few drivers have come from referrals or for people that I've talked to months ago when we didn't have a position, and then we'll get new trucks and they do open up. I honestly can't remember the last time I've paid money to put an ad up anywhere. It's been probably over a year. We've just got that type of, I guess, reputation in the industry. The best type of marketing that you can do is when drivers talk and have good things to say about your company. That attracts people better than any sign-on bonus can, or better than any ad and printer online could do.
Very cool. Very cool. Hopefully there's a lot of people that will take notice from that statement that you have a waiting list. That every company I talk to right now, they're saying I could use 10, 15, 20. I'm hearing companies in the southern US say that southeast US saying, they have 15, 20% open trucks. So it's a tough situation to be in, especially in this rate environment. So next question I have for you guys, the driver retention specialist. So that came up during your questionnaire and you implemented this role. Where did you come up with that role? What is that role? What do they do on a daily basis?
Yeah, so that role started, I can't remember, it was two or 3 years ago. Basically the ownership group said, we don't have to spend as much money on recruiting drivers if we retain the ones we've got, if we keep them happy, if we are proactive on any issues that might come up, and reactive to any ones that actually have transpired. So when that started, I kind of jumped from the role of recruiter to basically just focusing on driver retention. Our first group of hires, we hired 8 drivers. They were the only company drivers that we had. And I was chatting with these guys pretty much every day via text or phone calls or emails. And, I basically became a voice for the drivers, where in many companies you have, maybe you'll have a recruiter or someone in safety that kind of serves as a liaison, but they always have the operation of the company at the forefront, where in my role, it's, I understand that, yes, there is another hour of driving hour of service left in the day, but this driver's already done a ton of pickups. They want to go home. Junior's got a soccer game or a dance recital. There's things more important than the pickup. The $50 that the company might make on the pickup is going to be lost if you spend $6,000 to replace a driver that just quit.
Right.
So sometimes I do butt heads with operations, because it's not always a decision that you see makes sense in terms of dollars, but in the long run, it's not tripping over a nickel to pick up a penny is I guess one way of saying it.
And you have a closed loop process. So when someone has an issue, you make sure there's a resolution to the issue, whether it, sometimes you can't, fulfill perhaps their requirements, but at least you're resolving the issue. Is that accurate?
Not necessarily resolve the issue, but certainly address the issue. If they say, hey, we're always waiting for 2 hours at this company, what's going on? We can try and fix it. We can explain to them why it is a 2-hour wait and why it can't be fixed, or we'll explain what we're going to do to try and reduce the waiting time. So in a perfect world, we could resolve everything, but there's some things that, it's just the way they are. But maybe the driver wasn't aware of it. And then once it's explained to them, maybe they still don't agree, but they at least understand it, and then can, make decisions on if they want to continue on that lane or try something else within the company.
Great. Okay. Awesome. So one of the other things that I noticed and I looked up, because the questionnaire was submitted back in the fall, but it still rings true, is you have no DOT reportables at all to speak of. And I don't know on the Canadian side if that's still the fact, but obviously you guys have invested a lot in safety. Can you tell us more about your safety record and the investments you've made in safety?
Yeah, we obviously take our safety side of things, very seriously. We hired a long-term individual who's been in the industry for a while, and he came in with a lot of experience, and he's kind of quarterbacked the whole safety and compliance side of things, and he's done an amazing job to implement a lot of procedures to make sure that we're kind of dotting all of our I's and crossing our T's in our processes. And do you want to jump in there too?
Yeah, I mean, another thing that contributes to that, I don't want to beat the salary horse to death here, but because the drivers are on salary, they're not doing 13 hours a day or more trying to get extra miles to get extra money. They're doing a day, maybe it's 10, 11 hours, and they're not burning themselves out. That leads to safer drivers. We've got pretty strict hiring requirements. Technically, it's 3 years of experience that we require before we'll hire you. Right now, I don't think we have any drivers that have probably less than 6 or 7 years. We kind of pay for quality drivers, and it might cost a little more upfront to get them, but then the savings you notice from a retention, from an insurance and a safety standpoint, there's no real arguing with that logic.
And another thing too that we do is we invest a lot into new equipment. We're not putting the drivers on the road with equipment that's going to put them at risk of harming somebody else or themselves. So when they're getting pulled into safety checks or whatever may be, they're going in there with the confidence that they have good equipment behind them, and obviously they're still doing their checks on the equipment, but it definitely puts us in a better position to not have a target on our back if we're complying with safe equipment and just offering a newer model that's less likely to cause issues on the road.
Yeah, and I know for our last group of hires, I was looking for one driver for a specific run, and I had 3 very qualified people on paper apply for it. Well, more than 3, but I had 3 on my short list. We road tested them all. We've had probably more than half a dozen of our drivers now are road tester certified by KRTS. So we've kind of invested in our own people to, well, number one, grow their careers, but to be able to identify, what makes a good driver. And we've been very fortunate where, again, in this last instance, we had 3 guys come in for road tests. They all passed it. And let's say 2 guys got an 81 and 1 guy got a 91. We have the ability to choose the guy that got the 91 over the 81. Nothing wrong with an 81. That's a heck of a score. But yeah, having these qualified individuals to conduct the road test and choose the best driver means that we're getting, the top quality that's out there.
Very cool. Good work on that. And from an equipment point of view, I'm assuming you're utilizing collision mitigation equipment as well on all your trucks. Is that accurate?
Oh yeah, there's more sensors in our trucks than on an airplane. It seems like you can't really pass gas without some sort of sensor going off.
And dash cams too. You're utilizing cameras?
We've got forward-facing dash cams on a lot of our vehicles, not all of our day cabs, but our highway equipment.
Very cool. And how's the experience been so far with that? From a driver's perspective.
We had one, I'll say competitor's truck kind of stop in the middle of the highway with no brake lights. They had some sort of issue, and our dash cam caught the whole thing. It was something we were able to submit to the courts. They've even been great just for, if someone's going over a certain speed, we're able to see where exactly they are, what the road conditions are like, if they're going down a hill. It's something good to have in the back pocket. And if we ever are involved in a big collision, that's going to be the first thing that you look for, because it's so easy to blame the truck driver when really, they're driving 80,000 pounds of weight. That, it's not easy to stop on a dime, and, motorists like to blame the truck, but these are kind of get out of jail free card if we ever need to go down that route.
Good. So another thing that I noticed in your questionnaire is your investment in diversity. So you guys obviously are big on diversity and inclusion. Can you just tell me a little bit more about why diversity is so important to Wellington, and maybe some unique things perhaps that you guys are doing from a diversity and inclusion point of view?
Peter, you want to talk about our ownership group?
Yeah, so we actually have 2 females in our ownership group that have contributed quite a bit actually to our growth here. One of them helps with all the marketing and has really got a good eye for developing a lot of our our website and kind of social media appeal, and it's been a huge asset for us. And everybody brings something to the table, and we haven't really secluded ourselves from being open to anyone who has a good presence and good ideas to help grow the company in general. I think if you close yourself off, you're really limiting your potential growth. And from our numbers and how quick we've been growing, that goes to show that being open-minded and diversifying throughout the company has really paid dividends at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd say pretty confidently that over 50% of our ownership group is a visible minority, whether it's, we've got a couple of women, we've got a gentleman from Mexico, a gentleman from Iraq. And to echo Peter, it's a lot of different perspectives, and everyone just brings so many different thoughts to the table, which is great. And then we've tried to have that funnel through to our office staff and to our drivers, where diversity is a huge thing, especially these days. It's something that can't really be highlighted enough. So just with membership in different groups, like we do a lot of work with the Women's Trucking Federation of Canada, and we're proud to have well above the national average of female drivers on staff. Our office staff is nearly 50-50 men and women, and it's a male dominated industry. Basically, we're trying to get away from the white hair old boys club that a lot of companies are stuck in. If anything, we're in the no hair old boys club, but that's just genetics for you.
Good riddance. Good riddance. Yeah, good riddance to the old boys club. Its time has definitely passed. So good on you guys. Two final questions. One, predictions for the rest of 2021. How do you see the freight markets doing both in Canada and the US throughout the year?
Right now I see no slowdown from our end. From a US perspective, it seems like you can't get enough trucks at this point. Our US based company out of Wisconsin, we've doubled our fleet size over the past year. And we've just ordered in another 100 trailers that'll be dividing both between motor freight and trucking pros to continue to facilitate the growth. On a Canadian aspect of things, again, the amount of freight I feel like is coming through, our network is it's going to put us in another position where we leave kind of an impact for the year on growth side of things. And I see no slowdown right now in the near future, at least with everything.
Good. Some positive signs. Final question if someone in our audience is a carrier looking to get involved in Best Fleets, what is your response to them as to the value of Best Fleets to Wellington Motor Freight and the Wellington Group of Companies?
Yeah, the value is tremendous. Whether or not you're nominated as one of the top 20 is almost irrelevant. Like, we're lucky where we have been in the top 20 the past 2 years, and it's been in our email signatures and all over our website. So it's been great to market that and to show that off. But even the process along the way is so valuable, where you can see what other companies are doing. You can piggyback off of their good ideas. You can try and add something to them. You see where you measure up to some of the big hitters in the industry, and you also find out maybe where you're doing a lot better in some areas than you thought you were. It's just a very valuable process to go through. No question is really too small on it. I mean, they're all pretty relevant. You just have to, do your research and put some thought into ways you can improve your company so that you're a place that will attract top talent, because you're only as good as the drivers that you have. And if you're like the majority of the companies out there that are spending tens of thousands of dollars on replacing drivers every 2 weeks or 2 months, you're never going to get ahead.
That's right. Very true. Peter, do you have anything to add there?
The thing I love the most about it is it really is making us look at things a different way on how we approach handling hirings of drivers, and the amenities around the office, and just all the safety practices and things we can do to improve as a company. So having something like Best Fleets, where you're always trying to improve so you can stay within the runnings for being a best fleet. It's an important thing for us to do, not just to have the best fleet stamp, but just that also as a company we want to offer the best. And this whole process has really allowed us to really build a stronger process here, and thanks to Mike too. Mike's done an amazing job implementing a lot of the processes that we've put in place. And
well said, Peter.
Yeah, and coming up with some new ideas on things on how we can make the whole process better. And it goes from hiring the drivers to having them with their driver rooms, and doing small stuff, giving the driver a notebook when he gets hired on, and you write a nice little personalized message to him in the notebook. And small things like that go a long way. And that's kind of what Best Fleets has helped us achieve, is just kind of thinking outside the box and trying to do some new things that nobody else is doing.
And what's neat with it too is there's no real finish line. Like, yeah, so maybe we won it in 2020, and you put your feet up and celebrate for a night, but that's not a guarantee that you're gonna be in the running for 2021. There's hundreds of other companies that are applying for this, and you can't just be stagnant. You've always got to be getting better, finding different ways to improve. There's always going to be different things that come up, whether it's you're dealing with a coronavirus, or you're dealing with riots in Wisconsin, and you're concerned about driver safety. There's always ways to improve, and there's always different things that come up that force you to adapt. And again, as Peter said, a lot of times it's just the little things. That a driver recently comment like, wow, like, no one's ever asked me before, what type of fridge I want, or how my first trip went, and checked in along the way. All these little things add up to, being one of the best fleets and being a place that drivers want to come to.
Well said. Well said. Well, that's all I got for you guys. I really, again, appreciate you taking the time for this podcast episode. Anyway, well, thank you both for taking the time, and look forward to seeing you in person somewhere at an industry event in the future.
Hopefully in Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
All right. Great. Thanks for having us, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, another great conversation with a company and people working extremely hard to make trucking the best industry to work in. Thanks to Peter and Mike for taking the time for this recording. If you haven't already done so, please hit the subscribe button if you're watching via YouTube, or add us to your subscriptions on your favorite podcast app. Until then, keep improving.